All right. First rule of this channel, we not talk about this channel. Second rule of this channel, this is not legal advice. So this is going to be the roll, don't roll grift for week 3 of fantasy football. In general, this is where we can start to move guys up and down. We've seen about 2 weeks. If there's enough there after 2 weeks, like I can start moving guys up. I can start moving guys down. That means like guys that I were expecting to be my ones, I can move down to the twos. Guys that I expect to be my twos, I can move down to like that flex wide receiver 3 range. And those guys that I paid for that were in my wide receiver 3 type flex range, I can start moving out if I'm really worried about it. Some of the matchups that are out there, and I had a question about like Anthony Richardson. I probably will be rolling my Jaden Daniel shares. That means I no longer have a starting quarterback. So again, from a value perspective, if I have a guy that I'm not willing to roll every week, maybe I can start thinking about shopping that guy at this point. I don't know how many people out there are going to want to pay for certain guys, but again, like you package them up with a bag of chips and give them to somebody else. Again, with a guy like Anthony Richardson, he's going to give you a chance to win like any given week. I also said like when I was buying him, and I was not intending to buy my Anthony Richardson shares. I price checked him in an auction league, and I got him for under what I thought he should go for. So that's how I wound up with Anthony Richardson there. So in general, like that's how I would attack some of these guys that are out there going forward. I do have a couple things to talk about, like, and I'll bring this up so I can bring it up now that I think about it. We're going to talk about like a little bit of story time. Mike Evans in 2020, and this happened in the chip. One of those things to learn. This week 17 matchup, or week 16 matchup because there was only 16 games. So week 16, this is your chip, and I have Alvin Kamara where he puts up like the 50-point game and the 6 touchdowns, and I'm going up against Mike Evans. I almost lost this chip. So in this case, like Mike Evans, he goes 12 for 10 for 181 and 2 touchdowns. And my co-manager is sending me like desperation text going, what is going on with this football game? Because the Buccaneers were blowing out the Lions and they kept throwing him Mike Evans. And in this one, like they finally acknowledged someplace that Mike Evans, and if you don't know this, Mike Evans is very particular about the fact that he's been able to put up 1,000 yards receiving it every year that he's been in the league. So when you look at like 2020, he goes 1,006 yards. So what were they doing in week 16 with Tom Brady? Well, they were peppering him with targets so he could get there and he could make his 1,000 yards receiving this game. Why do I bring this up? This is why I get like a little annoyed with the state of the NFL right now. It's because if they really want to get opportunities to a guy, they can. You can't tell me that everybody on the Lions didn't know that there were going to be targets going to Mike Evans, especially later in the game. And they still couldn't stop it because, if you really want to get a guy the football, you can. And it just becomes an issue like, does that mean you're going to win the game? No. But you can get the opportunities of guys that are out there. Now, the other thing I want to talk about this is when we talk about like this coverage nonsense, this cover 2 nonsense, this has been going on for a while. The state of the game right now, for you guys that want to get into this a little bit, if not, if you just want to get to the grift, like skip ahead. But the state of the game right now, you have a lot of the younger guys and a lot of the younger coaches that have been brought into the game thinking that there are rules. If I see an 8 or 9 man box, that means I'm going to throw it. If I see 2 high shells, or I should say more accurately, middle field open or middle field closed, that means I'm going to run particular things. That means you get quarterbacks that are going to be staring down where the football is supposed to go pre-snap, and you're supposed to confirm it as a quarterback before you go there pre-snap or post-snap to make sure it's there. But again, like they're making their minds up beforehand because other rules say like if this conflict player is here or does this, then like this is where my football goes. Like again, sometimes you have to get the football to your best player, and the other team will give you looks that say don't give it to your best player. Because again, like one of the things at a high school level that goes on a lot, there's something that I know is cover 2 hard, which means that your corners are flat defenders. They're in the run force, they're flat defenders, and they're gonna play press and they're gonna bail, and then you're gonna have safety over the top. Now at a high school level, this is really easy because you're essentially playing man to man with everybody else because you're double teaming a guy. Now, do they run this at the NFL level? Yeah, a little bit, but like it's not it's not really a defense that you can sit in a lot where you have your corners not like you're running, as opposed to like palms where it's just like a soft 2. In this case, like you can at a high school level, you can just take that guy away. You can go like we're gonna try and win the game 9 on 10, because that's how you have this really good receiver. And if we don't like take him away, like we're gonna lose the game. So we're gonna make you go to someplace else. And one of my friends that I coach with, his rule of thumb is I'm always going to make the team do what they don't want to do. So if I'm scared of their running back, I'm going to make sure the quarterback keeps it. If I'm scared of the quarterback, I'm going to make sure they give it to the running back. So again, all these things are going on. And I remember back with the Buccaneers when they won the Super Bowl, watching tape on those guys, where they were showing looks to teams, knowing that the team would take the bait, and then they would slam the door on it because they were going like, "Oh, your pre-snap check is into inside zone when we give you this backside bubble. Okay, we're going to take that, we're going to give it to you, and we're going to slant into it post-snap." These are all the things that are going on now. Coaching some of the young kids that are out there, especially, and I've talked about this with Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray's like, I've been running the system all my life. I don't really need to put in a lot of effort into it. And they're just going to go like, I'm going to throw to green grass because that's what they've been doing in these like air raid systems, these spread systems for such a long time. They can come out and they can go like, this is the matchup I want. This is where it's supposed to be. I'm going to predetermine it. And then I'm just going to like do X and then throw Y. Now teams right now, they're coming out and they're seeing like heavier boxes, or they're not seeing heavier boxes. They're seeing these too high shells and they're checking it down and they're running the football because that's what the rules tell them to do. Well, it's football. I hate to break it to you. I need to impose my will on you. I want to do what I do and you need to stop it. And this goes back to like Marshawn Lynch when the Seahawks threw it at like the 1 yard line. Like, what are you good at? You need to impose your will on the other team instead of saying like, my rule here says run a pick route so I can lose the Super Bowl, because they want you to do that. And this is the other thing, like from a defensive perspective, and I'm a defensive coach, like later in the game when I need to get the football back because like we're behind, I'm going to give you intentional looks that say like throw the football, and I'm going to try and bait a pick or an incomplete pass, because an incomplete pass is a timeout and a pick is a turnover because you're stupid, because you need to run the football, because you just need to burn that clock one way or another. And you have to be good enough as a football team to go, you're giving me an 8 or 9 man box and I don't care because I'm going to go take my 3 yards in a cloud of dust. That's how football functions. So now you have all these coaches out there with all the analytics, and the analytics say do X, and they just do X blindly. When they get to the 1 yard line, instead of taking like this power back and just powering it in for a touchdown, they go like, well, I'm going to throw a fade, and then that gets picked and you don't get your points because the metrics say do this. Now, some of the analytics, they're great, they're fine, they're dandy. When I talk about this stuff is going for 2 now the game has changed when it comes to that. Like it's much more aggressive on that. And I like that portion of the game. There's other portions where like when I played, it was very conservative. Now, like everything is turned into like, from a defensive perspective, you have to run trap coverages and you got to blitz. And that means like even simulated pressures that are zone in function, but like the overload looks like it's a blitz to the quarterback. Those type of things have to be going on. And now you just get to the point where you have all these dum-dums that are like, well, my rules say that I can't run unless I get X, or I can't throw these plays unless I get Y. And that means you can just generally have guys that have things taken away from them. So that's my rant on this, if you're wondering that stuff. And everybody will start to figure this out as we go on. So moving on to this, this is like after waiver stuff. Probably not that interesting to some of you guys that are out there. Why I kind of track all these things there's always going to be an equal and opposite reaction. Well, why did the Texans go out and sign Irv Smith to their practice squad? Brevin Jordan, even though he's at 44% snaps, he tore his ACL, so he's done for the season. That's why it occurred. I didn't hear anything about this. It was just a little bit interesting to me. Like, why are they signing Irv Smith to the practice squad when they have, but whoever it is, the rookie tight end, and I'm just drawing a blank on this one. I'll go look it up because this is going to bother me. They had Cade Stover, so I'm like, well, why are they signing Irv Smith? This is interesting because they like Cade Stover. He's not going to move into that wide receiver or that tight end 1 range, but why are they bringing in a 4th tight end if they have Cade Stover? And this is why, like Cade Stover, I would imagine is going to probably take over for Brevin Jordan, and this is why we kind of track this stuff from a fantasy perspective. What's the equal and opposite reaction? Can I stay ahead of the curve? Now, moving on, and I go, it's the Grift. Keep skipping ahead if you're not into this stuff. So I did watch some of the highlights of this game, and this is another one of those things. There's a lot to learn about this when it comes to the New England Patriots and the Jets. Now, I'm not saying when I'm right in this case, but these volume-based RB2s that are just going to get like, the carries, and they're not going to get the receiving work, and they're not in good offenses. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back and say like, oh, look, Ramondre had a bad game. Like, so I would have rolled Ramondre anyway, because it's like, well, who else would I have in that slot? But in this case, this is why those running backs that are going to get a certain amount of receiving work, even if it's just check down monster work, and those running backs that are part of good offenses are so much better. It's like, well, how much opportunity did Ramondre actually have in this game? And you can kind of predict that beforehand. It was like, well, the Jets are going to play good defense. They're going to force the Patriots to beat them with Jacoby Brissett. and they're probably going to have just enough of an offense, and they're going to slow the game down. This is going back to like what I was talking about. Like Aaron Rodgers can go, oh, this is what you're giving me. That's fine. I still want to do this, right? And he could do that. And if you saw the Garrett Wilson catch, and some of the other things that were going on in the game, like there are certain points where it's like, yeah, I think he wanted to get Garrett Wilson the football, and he can do it. Like because I don't think that was a very advised throw if you're anybody else but Garrett Wilson or Aaron Rodgers throwing to Garrett Wilson on that one. So moving on in this case. Now, the other thing in this game, Braylon Allen, like, yeah, roster your cuffs and probably like really close to an RB2 in this one, probably downgrades Breece Hall. I was thinking about this today is maybe the only unicorn that exists from a running back perspective. It may be Bijan, and Bijan might not even be there. So, because not just because of Tyler Algier, but also because of the offense, if he's not going to be scoring touchdowns. So like, this is really interesting. Again, everybody's going to like be reduced together. They're going to compress together. It's like, well, who actually has value? Now, looking at why some of these guys are valuable, with Garrett Wilson, like still nine targets in this game. So that's the guy to own. And then Breece Hall does another 5. So that's why Breece Hall is valuable in this case. Because the receiving work, the targets that he's going to give you every week is likely going to give you at least a 40-degree day with a chance of a spike week. Now, other things are out there. I believe if we're looking at this, if you're a little bit curious, I think I know what's his face, not Polk, Baker. He was active in this game from what I saw. I didn't see any snaps for him when I was looking at it last night. So he was active. I just didn't see him, doing anything in this game. Outside of that, like, Drake May does look like he's not ready for prime time at this point. And then if you're wondering about like your Tyler Conklins and your Alan Lazards, like, yeah, Aaron Rodgers is going to go with the football where he wants to go with football. He's also going to give you or take what you give him. And that's one of the other things. Like I was thinking about this is back when I was a young lad, because I'm an old man now, 60% completion percentage with like, a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio was considered good. Now, with the advent of some of these like spread offenses where you could just check it down, and you could go back to the West Coast Conference offense when you want to talk about this. You got these completion percentages that were pushing up towards 70, and these ridiculous, touchdown to interception ratios. And I can go back and we can talk about like Aaron Rodgers here. And in this case, when you look at some of that stuff that's going on, if like I talk about with quarterbacks, you want gunslingers and you want game managers. And if you lack one of the two of them, and Jacoby Brissett is not a gunslinger, you're going to get into these bad cases. Now, when you have like really good quarterbacks, and to put this whole like, conversation about like how good Aaron Rodgers is, when he can complete like 70% of his passes and he has these like ridiculously low touchdown to interceptions percentages, like 48-5, and he's still pushing the ball vertically down the field, that means that when he does throw deep, he's completing it. And it doesn't mean that he's like taking the check down over putting the ball down the field. He's like, well, when should I do this? How should I do this? Is this a good risk to take? And again, like same process of win your league, lose your league. That's what's going on with Aaron Rodgers. And that just kind of tends to tell you how like good he is. He's like, well, when I'm going to do this, I'm going to land it. I'm just not going to throw a deep ball for the sake of throwing a deep ball. Now, sometimes you got to do that from a football perspective, a strategy standpoint, but that's just how it rolls down the field. So anyway, that's about what I got for this one. Moving on to this week's like big news, Zach Charbonnet. He's a role right now. It looks like Kenneth Walker is doubtful. He did get a limited practice participation in today. Like I would imagine, like normally you want to see that ramp up as the week goes on. So if he got a limited in today, that likely means he's going to be doubtful. I would guess that like there's probably like a 50-50 chance he's going to roll next week, as long as there's not a setback or anything like that. Cam Akers would be a role if in that RB2 to flex range, if you're into that type of thing, because Damian Pierce was out and Joe Mixon was out. I was watching some of the fantasy content, like the quote unquote docs that are out there saying like this Joe Mixon injury may be a little bit more severe than originally expected. So kind of track that when it comes to if you picked up your Cam Akers. Roma Dunze, he would be a role right now because Keenan Allen, and again, this is just generally vacated opportunity stuff. This is not matchup based. And Jalen Naylor would be a role, in that wide receiver 3 type flex range, because Jordan Addison's out in that offense. It does look like Justin Jefferson is going to play, which is probably an upgrade to Jalen Naylor, actually, because that means like when teams want to take away Justin Jefferson, he's going to get the football. Now, other things going on. George Kittle is doubtful. I actually, Debo is out at this point, so those targets need to go someplace. I probably would not be rolling Kyle Juszczyk out other than to be cute. And again, if you're going to be chasing this in deeper leagues, like the football's got to go someplace at this point. Now, a couple other things. Evan Ingram is going to be out, so that means like Bretton Strange is going to be on the table as a streamer. In this case, like I don't know how comfortable I would be rolling what would project to be as the number 4 in the offense, but again, it just depends on how like deep your league is, and you're kind of chasing the 68% snaps and the 6 targets last week. Other things, Eric All with the tight end situation. So Tanner Hudson, he may not be playing right now. He missed. Gesicki is on the injury list. The bigger issue would be like T. Higgins is trending towards playing. If you get that perfect storm, you can be rolling your Eric All out. If T. Higgins is out, Gesicki is out, you could get Eric All slotting in there. And again, now we're just chasing the vacated opportunity. And we could talk about theoretically there being a number 2 in that offense behind Jamar Chase with all of that down the line. All right. So moving on to the schedule, we're kind of generally trying to track like, what's a good or bad matchup. And this is why I talk about this, like why I don't subscribe to some of this stuff from a fantasy football perspective. Because if teams want to get the football to their guys, they can do that. Doesn't matter who they're playing, they can decide to do that. Now, some teams will just sit there and go like, nah, I'll try and beat you someplace else. And that's fine. That's good football too. But from a fantasy perspective, it's like, well, how much can I look at what's going on in the field? Oh, they have this really good corner. He's gonna shadow this guy. Like, I don't care. Because if the other team, wants to get their number 1 wide receiver the football, they can do that. In the same context of like, if they want their running back to be able to win them the game, even against like heavy boxes, they can design passing work and they can get the football to that guy. So again, how much of this can we predict ahead of time? Like, that's why this one with the implied points, like this is Vegas and this is what their job is. So you can see like 38.5, that's generally low. So, this is going to turn into an ugly game. It would not surprise me if it finishes like, 9-6 or something along those lines, especially with Trevor Lawrence being, or not Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert potentially being on the bubble right now. If he does play, I could see that they're going to be a little bit more conservative with everything. So like 38 implied points, like, yeah, I don't know how many of any of the toys I want to be rolling out in this game because they can just both drag it down to a final possession. Bears and Colts at this point, like Bears have a good defense. They have a bad offense. The Colts are going to be really inconsistent, especially because if they're going up against like a good defense in the Colts or the Bears, and the Colts defense has not been very good. So like, again, like 45.5 Vegas implied points means like I probably want to be rolling guys out in this game, and it just becomes an issue of +1 for the Bears. So like they don't know. They're expecting a lot of points, and they have no idea like who's it's going to be relatively close, if that makes sense in that case. So I would be rolling out my toys. So again, Rome is probably like the best roll if you're in that like wide receiver 3 flex type range, because we can look at the vacated opportunity with Keenan Allen being out in this game. When it comes to the Colts, it's going to get like really messy because you're looking at Pittman may or may not roll. Downs is potentially back. Then we're trying to predict Anthony Richardson. The biggest thing you're trying to get out of Anthony Richardson is that rushing floor, and then everything else is gravy on that one. So again, like if Anthony Richardson is my starting quarterback, I'm not concerned because that's what I bought. If I had the ability to go out and get like a Jane Daniels, like I did, like there may be better matchups because to be able to predict like how close the Bears game is going to be in general on that one. Texans Vikings 46.5. This is another game that with a higher implied point total, and we can go over and we can look at like the Texans are 3.5 point favorites in this game. So like in general, I want to be rolling out as many of the toys as I can in higher implied points. Now, again, scoring and passing are down across the league. I don't know if Vegas is necessarily caught up to that. The other thing is you got to remember with Vegas that they're trying to trick people into betting, and they always want to have at least like 51% of the bets go in their favor because that would make sense. So like, just be advised when I track some of this stuff when it comes to scoring, the only thing I tend to look at when I look at some of this stuff myself is like, is this a game that I do expect to have a particular script? If Vegas says something that I'm not, then I'm like, well, what am I missing? So this game, I would expect that there could theoretically be more scoring. But again, because of the general direction of the league and the Vikings defense in particular, Vikings defense, like when you're going to stop the run and you're going to blitz, live by the blitz, die by the blitz. Like, yeah, the Texans could torch them. They also could drag this game down in the dirt because like the Texans can't do anything in this game. So be advised when you're like chasing some of your other pieces for the Texans. And then again, with the Vikings, you're probably rolling out your Aaron Jones. Ty Chandler would be, a coin flip if you want to be rolling out that guy. A Jalen Naylor, again, like as a wide receiver threes in deeper leagues, like I would like that in general. And then all the Texans pieces, like they're all going to be very volatile. The one guy that I would say no to would generally be like Nico, or yes to it. What I mean is Nico. He may end up being the one matchup proof guy because he could be like very special. And then when it comes to like Cam Akers can be a quote unquote design receiving back. So that would be why, like, even though the Texans defense may take that, or excuse me, the Vikings defense may take away the run in general, you could still get some of that receiving work. So again, that safe floor to go along with it. If the defense is dictating don't run on us, you could still get the check down monster work to Cam Akers in this game to give you some type of safe floor with a chance to fall in the end zone because of the higher implied point totals. Now, Giants and Brown, this is another one. Yeah, like 39 points. Like I generally don't want anything to do with this matchup. I could see the Browns being still good enough to take away Malik Neighbors in this game. So yeah, like I generally wouldn't want to be rolling anything out. Even Jerome Ford, like I probably bought him in that like flex RB2 range. I'm not going to overthink that at this point, but like, yeah, there's enough there to go. I was like, do I have the ability to go in a different direction on this one? I can kind of see the writing on the wall when it comes out of that. And no David Njoku, so it doesn't really matter if we're theoretically going to be stretching on that one. 47.5 Saints and Eagles. So this is another higher implied point total game. Eagles by 3 in this one. So yeah, I would be rolling guys out there. So you're looking at like Shaheed would be fine. Like if I want to catch that lightning in a bottle again. For the Eagles, no AJ Brown. So Devontae Smith definitely, if you have Dallas Goedert, like maybe at that point, just because like those vacated opportunities need to go someplace if they're not going to go to like say Barkley at this point. So like this would probably be more of an upgrade towards Barkley, more so than me trying to chase Dallas Goedert because Dallas Goedert didn't get it done last week. But if I'm in a league and Dallas Goedert is available, like probably over your Eric Alls and your Brenton Strange is something like that going on down the line. Broncos and Buccaneers. So I don't want anything to do with the Broncos to begin with. 40.5 points. I'm going to guess that most of this 5.5 point favorite for the Buccaneers to go along this with. So again, like just general, like, Godwin, Evans, Baker May, I'd be rolling those guys out there. And again, like for the Broncos, like I probably would not be wanting to touch anybody. Rashad White does look like he is limited, but questionable heading into the game. So like I would expect that he's going to play. And I also would expect that there's a possibility that we could see an uptick in Bucky Irving because you could get Rashad White not being healthy in this one. Packers, Titans, like 38 points. So this is supposed to be ugly. No idea on Jordan Love. He is now questionable at this point. So again, like if Jordan Love plays, this would upgrade like certain guys. And I'm just generally say the only guy that I would probably be looking to upgrade would be Tucker Kraft. He was limited with a shoulder, but that would be the one guy that I would definitely jump into streamability range would be Tucker Kraft because we could expect more scoring in this one. Jaden Reed is probably a roll one way or another in that flex wide receiver 3 range. He still becomes viable because of the theoretical rushing work he could get with Malik Willis to go along with that. Dobbs is going to be like, an ugly wide receiver 2, so it doesn't matter. And again, with the Titans, if I'm rolling like Calvin Ridley, Tajay Spears was a limited participant on Friday. So, maybe not going to get full bell cow Tony Pollard. I still would be rolling Tony Pollard out there, even with lower implied points if I have Tony Pollard in that 60% snap rate. So that doesn't make that too big of an issue. Panthers and Raiders. So I can gamble a little bit on the Panthers because, the Red Rifle's coming in. So that means like Deontay Johnson is probably going to be, if I drafted him to be like my wide receiver 2, I would be downgrading him, but he would still be in the consideration for like flex based off of snap share and that change that I could take advantage of. Chuba Hubbard's going to stay in that range of like low end RB2 / flex if you have him, because again, maybe we could take advantage of this. When it comes to the Raiders, they've been like one of the higher neutral pass rate teams. And this is one of the things that we talked about in the offseason, is like trying to guess some of these offenses. So again, like Bowers is going to be on the table because of the matchup, like Zamir White. So if you have your Zamir White shares, like 63% snaps last week, I would be rolling them out against the Panthers also in this one, outside of some of these guys. And, Bowers does look like he's a unicorn, so I'm not going to overthink that. And then the other thing is, if you're in deeper leagues and you have a chance at like Xavier Legette, like he would be on the table as one of those like boom bust wide receiver 3s in this matchup. Dolphins and Seahawks in this one. So Kenneth Walker, I already talked about him. He's trending towards not playing. He's doubtful right now. So that would upgrade Zach Charbonnet into theoretical like top 10 running back at this one, like 96% snaps. And again, the check down monster work. If probably not going to get design passing work, but check down monster work. And then he's going to also have red zone opportunities attached to like what projects to be like not a bad offense. Now, the full downgrade is going to be because Tua's out in this one. I'm kind of curious what Vegas says about the stat line. So 6.5-point favorite for Seattle. So like they're expecting like a little bit of a beating in this one. What would I do with the toys when it comes to the Dolphins? If you're looking at like your Tyreek Hills and your Jalen Waddle in this one, like I would expect that there is a downgrade in them. So again, like you're probably looking at like Tyreek Hill theoretically being in wide receiver 2 range, a little bit of a boom bust. Like again, guys like that, like all they have to do is like hit one, and they're gonna give you a 40-degree day. Same thing with Jalen Waddle. So I probably would not be overthinking these guys unless like I had like a really good draft and I could go a different direction on that one. Did see that Mostert is looking or trending towards doubtful. Jeff Wilson is off the injury report. So that Jalen Wright in deeper leagues would be like that dart throw in that flex range, looking for like actives and inactives when it comes down to that. Like the one guy that I would feel like really good about like in this one is A-Chain, because I can imagine the whole entire offense is going to be structure around him going forward. And when it comes to the Seahawks in the passing game in this one, because of the theoretical game script that we could get into where the Dolphins are just bad, I don't know how much I would be chasing. Even JSN would probably be downgraded into that like flex range, and that would be the only guy outside of like DK and Charbonnet that I would be rolling out there in this one. Geno Smith is probably like okay streamer, because like I could see him getting home because they could take advantage of the Dolphins just consistently turning the football back over to the Seahawks. Lions and Cardinals. So I was about to say like higher implied point total in this one, 51.5. So everybody should be rolled out in this one. Let me pull this up. And it's only like a 3.5 favorite for the Lions. So like, they're expecting this to go fast. Now the Cardinals do tend to play a little bit slow. The Lions do play a little bit fast. So, but yeah, like everybody. So like we could theoretically, outside of like Marvin Harrison Jr. and James Conner and Trey McBride, like we're getting into like Michael Wilson may be fantasy viable. We're getting into like Trey Benson is going to be in that like flex range, especially like if you get into deeper leagues like the Lions. So JMO is going to be like, I think the last time I saw, like he's still questionable with an ankle, but the Sun God's fine. You're rolling out all those guys in that case, regardless, more than likely. But yeah, like I would feel like really good about like rolling out some of these guys. Ravens and Cowboys at 48, again, higher implied point total. I don't know if I would necessarily like bet this one, especially like just generally what we've seen of the Ravens and the Cowboys. And I don't know how much consistency we're going to get out of this. And this is like Cowboy favorites by 1. So I don't know how much I would be betting like the higher implied point totals on this one. Ferguson looks like he's a go in this one. And I did see on this, if you're a little interested, Mark Andrews has like more pass blocking reps this year than he did last year already. So I don't know what that means going forward in this one, but I probably would not be chasing certain guys. Like that means like, again, Rashad Bateman's probably not a guy I will really be interested in. Also some other news, Justice Hill was signed to like a 2-year, $6 million contract, something like that for the Ravens. So again, they do like him. Maybe I could definitely see like in deeper leagues, you're looking at like, a flex play when it comes to Justice Hill or Desperation Marcher 2. Hopefully you guys can hear that motorcycle. And then for the rest of the guys for the Cowboys, like I don't know how many other guys I would be chasing outside of probably Ferguson is fairly okay. If he's your tight end, CeeDee Lamb, he's off the injury report on that one. And again, I don't know anything about like the Cowboys running back situations. I probably would not feel like super comfortable rolling any of those guys out there. 49ers Rams. This is going to be an ugly game. 47.5 implied points. Like I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking. I imagine this could end up being like a very poor game script, because you're looking at the 49ers. I mean, they're going to be out Kittle, Debo. Who knows what's going on with Ayuk? What's his face? CMC is going to be out. Jordan Mason. So like I can see this being a very slow game that the 49ers just want to get out with a victory and not make this like any type of track meet. When it comes down to the Rams are bad on defense. They're bad on offense. They don't really have anybody to throw the football to, and they haven't been able to consistently run the football. Like they're I think I was reading someplace that the offensive line's all banked up too. So in this case, like, yeah, I'm going to imagine that the 49ers could just win the game by keeping it like conservative, which means that, like, again, you're probably rolling out Kyron Williams because you paid for him. If you want to chase any of those wide receivers, like, you're more than welcome to. Colby Parkinson, you're more than welcome to. I wouldn't be rolling any of those guys out there. And again, 49ers, maybe Jawan Jennings if I'm in a pinch because of those vacated opportunities to go someplace. And I can imagine that, like, Ayuk is still not ready to play like real football at this point, at this case. And again, like, maybe use check if you're in like super deep leagues. Like, I probably, the only guy, like Jordan Mason is probably the only guy I'm going to roll. And Ayuk, even if I downgraded him, it would be still like keeping him in like the flex wide receiver 3 type conversation. Chiefs Falcons, higher implied point total. Again, this would be a game that I could definitely see the Chiefs are going to just run away with the Falcons. Neither of these offenses have been particularly consistent. 4.5 point favorites for the Chiefs in this one. So, like, if the Chiefs want to make this very difficult by taking away Bijan or Drake London, I could definitely see, like, I would be rolling out Kyle Pitts in this one if you're interested, because, like, one way or another, there's only so many guys that the Chiefs can take away, and it becomes a conversation of, like, do you think they're going to take away Drake London, or do you think they're going to stack the box and try and take away, like, Bijan at that point? I would probably put the ball in Kirk Cousins' hands and say, like, you beat us. When it comes to the Chiefs in this one, like, I definitely would be, it's still going to keep Xavier Worthy in that, like, boom best range. Like, Travis Kelce, I'm not going to overthink on that one. Rasheed Rice is probably the league winner when it comes down to that. Carson Steele, I would definitely be rolling out in this one because of the theoretical implied point total. So again, like, you're probably either desperate for Carson Steele, you're rolling him in your flex. So, like, one way or another, I'm probably not going to overthink that one. Jaguars, Bills, 46.5. This is another one where I could definitely see the Bills just, like, walk away with this. I don't know. Like, again, Dalton Kincaid, because he's a tight end, that's fine. James Cook, that's fine. I'm probably not rolling any other wide receivers for the Bills. The Jaguars, this is one of the interesting ones. I probably would be rolling out Brian Thomas in this one just because I would imagine as the season goes on, he's going to, because of what we've already seen, he's going to become more and more the number one in the offense. So again, it's just like trying to guess ahead of the week that he has that spike week. After what we saw last week, I could definitely see that occurring with all the stuff that's out there. Commanders and Bengals, this is 47.5, so that's higher implied points in this one. 7.5 point favorites for the Bengals, so that implies like a negative game spread for the Commanders. So in this one, like, and again, I'm already expecting, like, to be rolling out Jaden Daniels in this game. So that would, if you're worried about Scary Terry, you could be rolling him out there. Like, if you're in like super deep leagues, you could, like, maybe guess that this is a Luke McCaffrey week or a Zach Ertz week when it comes down to that. And then we've already talked about, like, the Patriots and the Jets in this one down the line. So anyway, that's what I got for the Grift. The main guys that I would be going after, if I need that desperation, would be like Zach Charbonnet. He should have already been rostered. We talked about Cam Akers on after waivers. Hopefully you guys already scooped up your Cam Akers shares. If you got Rome, I would feel pretty good about rolling Rome this week. Jalen Naylor, even up into like these wide receiver 2 type ranges with these guys. Jawan Jennings, I could even see finishing as like that wide receiver 2 in this case. And then some of the streamers that we could maybe guess on, Brenton Strange and Eric All, maybe a little bit having to watch on what the tight end situation and the T. Higgins situation are going to be for the Bengals this week. But in general, that's what I would be looking at, what I would be doing. And see you on Sunday with the sausage.